How big of a jump can the Badgers make from week one to week two? And why don't we see more of a deep ball game? Well, I'm not fully buying the explanation.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on, Badger fans? It's Locked On Badgers, your team every day. Shorter show right now. We're going to get some comments on. I want to do more of these shows to get your YouTube comments in and get your thoughts involved in the show because that helps our community grow. And I think we're smarter when we get more listener thoughts and ideas and comments into the show. So we're going to do that today. I want to start, though, with Wisconsin. We talked about this on the last show. Wisconsin did not push the ball downfield very much against Buffalo. Famously, they had the one to Skylar Bell, which should have been a successful strike. But for the most part, it was underneath in the flats. And, Phil Longo, Tanner Mordecai talked. They said primarily this was because of game script. They wanted to get their athletes in space. It was also because of how Buffalo played Wisconsin, right? They dropped back a little bit more. They made it harder to take those deep shots. Here's my issue with both of those comments. The first one, the idea that we want to see what our guys can do in space. I mean, you've had all fall. I feel like you should know what Braelon Allen and Chez can do in space, right? I obviously you can't tackle as much in practice as you can in a live game, but it felt seven catches for Braelon. It felt a little excessive with the deep receiving core you have. And then the idea that Buffalo dropping back is able to take that away from Wisconsin. Now, one game does a trend not make, right? But Buffalo shouldn't be able to just say, you're not going to go deep on us. Not speaking to Wisconsin, right? They shouldn't be able to fully game plan that away, given the depth that we thought we had at receiver, given the ability of Tanner Mordecai that we thought we were getting. You still should be able to find opportunities to push the ball downfield despite Buffalo trying to take it away. That's why you go get a Bryson Green, a CJ Williams, right? Because those athletes can just go out athlete people on 50-50 balls. So it's just an interesting comment to me. I don't want to make too much out of it because it's 1 week. And I don't think they obviously didn't necessarily need it against Buffalo. But there's a possibility that that's just kind of coach speak, right? And that they did want to take some shots and they couldn't either execute it. They couldn't get separation from the receivers. Maybe Mordecai missed it. It's really hard without the all-22 film where we can zoom out and see what was there. But it feels like the idea that Buffalo just schemed and took away the deep ball feels a little too convenient, right? Because when you're playing the really good teams with good receivers, you can never fully take that away, right? Because they'll find opportunity to scheme up a one-on-one somewhere, and then they'll give their athlete a 50-50 chance, which oftentimes the schools like Ohio State, Penn State, the ones with big athletes, those schools win those battles, right? The Bamas and the Georgias. So I would have liked to have seen, regardless of how Buffalo's trying to scheme it, I would have liked to have seen a couple deep shots to test it, to give one of our bigger athletes at receiver an opportunity to out-athlete somebody. So I just thought the comments were interesting. I'm not fully buying, like Buffalo was just able to take it away. I wonder if there were some execution issues there as well. All right, let's get into some of your comments. Again, I want to get your comments into this show. Jason T said, quality of opponents, talking about Washington State. They played Colorado State, who was 3-9 last year. So we've definitely talked about Washington State. Looked really good week one. Cameron Ward, 450 yards, 3 touchdowns. They looked great. To Jason's point, they played a 3-9 team last year. Colorado State looked bad. I went back and watched some of that Washington State-Colorado State game. They did not look good. Meanwhile, Wisconsin played Buffalo. Buffalo was 7-6 last year and won a bowl game. Buffalo is a better team than Colorado State. Right. So that you have to factor that in. Yes, Washington State on paper in the box score looked great. They played a really bad opponent that you go back and watch and they didn't look like they belonged on the same field. Buffalo would beat Colorado State. It probably wouldn't be that close. So it is a good point, right? Wisconsin had a tougher test. I think Buffalo's going to be pretty solid this year for a MAC team. I think they won a bowl game last year. I like the quarterback play. It's going to be something to track. I think it's a good point from Jason. This is from B. Todd. I think Badger Todd is the name. It's likely going to take some time to adjust for the players and coaches during the first part of the season. It'll be a tough game at Washington State, but win or lose, it'll be a great learning tool headed into the Big Ten. I think this is a comment I wanted to put up, and I think it's interesting if you think of it like this. Like, very few people actually think the Badgers are going undefeated this year, right? The line was 8.5. A lot of people have them at 9 wins, 10 wins, maybe the super optimistic at 11 wins with a loss to Ohio State. Most people think Wisconsin's going to lose 2 or 3 games, myself included. And that's a really good year in a first season of a new coach, right? If you went 9-3 or 10-2. So if you think you're going to lose 2 or 3 games, right? And please don't misunderstand what I'm about to say. Losing out of conference is not the worst thing in the world, right? That's the game to lose. You'd rather lose to Washington. I'm not trying to say this doesn't matter, because it does. I am so excited for this game, and I'm going to be so sad if they lose, because I'm a fan at heart. But losing to Washington State early in the season, as B. Todd is saying, it's a great learning tool heading into the Big Ten. Whatever happens this weekend, win or lose, right? It doesn't impact the Big Ten race. So I think it's a good point that it's a big learning tool. It's obviously going to be a really tough test at Washington State. And he's also correct. It's going to take some time to adjust. Like players, coaches, new schemes, new players. It's not going to be seamless. And that's also what Jake Ainaro, a good friend of the show, said. New coaches, new schemes, new personnel. Give Coach Fick some time. He will get them there. And Jake is correct on this point. It's going to look a lot better in 4 weeks than it does in week 1. And it's going to look better in 8 weeks than it does in 4 weeks. And it's going to look better in year 2 than in year 1. Right? So, yeah, give Fick some time. Now, that's not to say you should lose a bunch of games this year, because the schedule is not very strong. I'm not going to go back on my prediction of 10-2. I think they're going to still be 10-2, because I don't think the schedule is very strong, and the rest of the Big Ten West doesn't look good. But yeah, it's not going to be perfect. Give Coach Fick some time. I think those are very good comments. Let's go here. This is from B. I couldn't put the whole username on here because I think I ran out of a character, so I don't even know who this is. B something. But he said, we can simply win by running the ball on 80% of the plays. Dumb, can't throw any picks or we'll lose. I wouldn't call our quarterback dumb. But Tanner Mordecai can't throw any picks or we'll lose. I don't know if he can't throw any picks. Cameron Ward has showed a propensity to have turnovers as well. It's very likely he's going to have 1 or 2, but you can't lose a turnover battle 2-0, right? If you throw 2 picks and Cameron Ward plays clean, you're going to lose that game. But Cameron Ward fumbled 3 times last game. They got him back. He had some interception issues early last year throwing the ball. He's probably going to turn it over too. He went on to say the D will be fine. Washington State is a bunch of scrubs. There's no reason for them to score more than 17. Cameron Ward's not a scrub. And they got real receivers. They got 3 or 4 receivers. They got a really athletic, big offensive tackle, a couple solid tight ends. Washington State is pretty good offensively. They aren't a bunch of scrubs. And if they score 17, I think it'll be because the defense played incredibly well. I would expect Washington State to score more. In fact, I think this game is going to be a bit of a shootout is my early prediction. So, but your first point's interesting. Wisconsin might be able to win by just running it down their throats, right? And then eventually see if Washington State has to commit to the box. And that's where you counterpunch with the passing game. But I definitely think this is a game they're going to lean on the run early and often. And there's no reason they shouldn't. Hayden Bader says, let's go Cougs, upset in the Palouse coming. I think Hayden's the first Washington State fan to comment on the show. So Hayden, man, I hope it's a great, amazing weekend, and I'm excited for it. Thank you for coming on the show and commenting. Greg Linscomb says, very tough game. I agree with your guest. I have a 23-20 Bucky. That's lower scoring than I think it's going to be. The keys are who wins the battle in both trenches, and can we contain, in parentheses, not stop, Cam Ward. The trenches are going to be very interesting. I don't think Washington State's going to try to run the ball much. They didn't in week 1. Nakia Watson, I think, only had like 17 rushing yards. I have to go back and look at the box score. They're going to throw it around. They have a pretty deep receiving group. They added 3 transfers. They're going to want to throw the ball around. Cam Ward will create some time with his legs. I think it's going to be high scoring. I don't think it's going to be a defensive battle 23-20, Greg, because I don't think they're defensively going to stop us either. I think our offense is going to present all sorts of issues for them with the running game. I think they're going to have to commit extra bodies. And then, listen, Tanner Mordecai, the one thing that I love about him, he's a 6-year guy. He's not going to overreact or be freaked by the 2 interceptions last week. He's going to come out flinging it. Like the Palouse going on the road, it's not going to bother him. Right. So I'm expecting a big bounce back from Mordecai, actually. I think Washington State is going to commit to the run, see if Tanner can beat them. I think Tanner's going to be really good. But I also think Cam Ward is pretty good. Right. So I expect a shootout in this game. All right. We're going to take a quick break for friends of the show over at eBay Motors. Great friends of the show. And listen, eBay Motors is the #1 place to buy any part for your car. And it's hard. If you're not a car person, it's hard to find the exact right part, right? You go into a place, you put all your stuff into a computer, you hope the guy behind the desk can help you. eBay Motors takes care of all of that with their intuitive and unique way to buy the right parts. Head to eBay Motors with eBay Guaranteed Fit. You can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to my garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home the right win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. I do want to say thank you to every single person tuning in. Y'all are amazing. Let's just keep these comments going. And again, this is just an opportunity for me to loop in a lot of your thoughts and your comments with the Badgers with the upcoming weekend. And I really like doing this. So thank you so much for all the comments. I'm still not getting to every single one of them because our community is incredible, but I'm going to continue to try to get through as many of them as I can. This one is from Buckethead. No, let's see. Go to the Eddie Line Creations. He's predicting 2 picks from Mordecai in the first half. Lock gets put in the second half. Night away game. Wazoo stacks the box. Badgers get stomped on the road 50-10. They're not getting beat 50-10, Eddie. I don't think 2 picks in the first half is getting Lock into a game. I don't think you want to start Lock. He'd get his first experience on the road at night in a hostile environment. Listen, that crowd's going to be fired up. It's a primetime game for them. It's a Big Ten team coming in, right? The conference that just gutted their conference. They're going to be very amped up. And I don't think that's the game you want to put Braden Locke into. I'm not saying he won't succeed. I think you're going to, barring injury, you're sticking with Mordecai. And I don't think it's that close. Wisconsin's too good of a team to lose by 40 to Washington State. I think there's a bit of an overreaction here from week one. I don't see it. If they do, let's come back and put this comment back up and I'll eat crow. I don't see it. I absolutely do not see it. Logan K says Badgers 49, Wazoo 14. This is the inverse of that last one. Offenses, let's see, he said Wazoo has very big question marks on the defense. That is true. Offense is okay, but not spectacular. Badgers should be prepared, come out hot and dominate. I think this is just as likely as the previous one. I don't think either team is boat racing the other. Washington State is a real quarterback. And I don't think you're going to go on the road in week 2 and beat a team with a real quarterback by 30 or 40 when they're really fired up for this game. I think their offense is too good. I think they're going to score more than 14. Again, I think it's going to be like a 38-31, a 42-35 game. I think it's going to be really high scoring, actually. I think there's going to be a lot of points put up on the board. I don't think either defense is going to necessarily do a great job. Maybe more, maybe more like 34-28, something like that on the lower end. But I don't see a blowout either way. So Logan K, I love the optimism, but believe with Rajiv is not here, unfortunately, and I can't go with that kind of output. Timothy Palm says on the first pick, speaking of last week's game, it looked like CJ Williams was one-on-one versus the corner, a fly route with no safety help. That's where Wisconsin needs to start throwing the 50-50 ball. Timothy, from your texting to my brain through my mouth, I agree. Like you get those big, strong athletes to take 50-50 chances. And I think they need to exploit those when they get them. Now, again, against Buffalo, maybe it wasn't the game plan, right? And they didn't have to. But you're going to need to do that occasionally because that's the point of getting those big, strong weapons. Brent McDonald says, I'm with you. Front seven seemed underwhelming at first and was surprised to hear Fick's glowing review of that group after the game. But upon rewatch, I get it. Coach Fickell was very high on Gio Pies as well. I talked about James Thompson. I thought Turner had a pretty good game blitzing. Muma had some moments. Yeah, the only thing I'd say with the front seven on the rewatch that I didn't even really talk about on the rewatch show is there's some hesitancy on read and react with like Turner specifically in the run game. It looks like it's taken him a while. I don't think he has the instincts, obviously, of the previous inside linebackers, but I thought the front seven was better. Again, Daryl Peterson really impressed me on the rewatch. I think they'll be okay, but this is a tough game. Like Cam Ward moves in the pocket really well, and it's going to be difficult for the Badgers pass rushers to keep him there. So this is a tough game. They have to play really at about their peak performance to keep Cam Ward from kind of breaking the contain. Once Ward, see, here's the thing. If you haven't watched a lot of Cam Ward, he likes to move, but he likes to then throw on the move. He's one of those type of quarterbacks. He's not pulling it right away and trying to run and scramble. He's trying to pull, break, contain, and then throw behind the defense on a scramble situation to make those big back-breaking plays. You have to keep him contained. You can't just get out of your rush integrity with Cam Ward because he's going to make you pay. So big game for the front seven in this one. Dimitri says the key thing when the offense aims for quick throws, the cornerbacks have to blanket the receiver. Giving them 8-yard cushions is an offensive coordinator's dream. Yeah, I thought it took the Badgers a while to do that last game, right? Buffalo was getting rid of the ball quickly, and we were backing off of them a little bit, giving them some easy throws. Tressel tightened that up, though. He tightened that up quite a bit, and I think you saw the result from Buffalo. Robert Love asked, what is up with Bowlers? Is he hurt? Bowlers does have a minor injury. Hopefully he's back this week. I think he'd be a big addition. Him and Varner, like you're talking about two pieces you can plug in there to maybe supercharge athletically some of your front seven. You have the 270-pound Bowlers, and then you have the transfer and Varner. Those are two big pieces that if they can come back and they can kind of hit the ground running, the Badgers need them. So I'm hoping this week we'll see, especially Varner. I think they're going to need him quite a bit. Alad says, will Washington State load the box next Saturday? Based on the Buffalo game, I would, until Tanner proves he can beat us throwing the ball. Yeah, like put on your Badger fans, put on your defensive coordinator hats. How would you defend Wisconsin right now if you were Washington State? And here's the thing with Washington State is they have a couple really good pass rushers. Ron Stone is a really good player. They have a solid secondary, but they're a little soft on the interior. How would you defend the Badgers? I would stack the box. I would say, based on what we saw from Tanner Mordecai week 1, I don't know if he can beat us right now. And I think Tanner Mordecai can, by the way. Like, I'm not as down on Tanner Mordecai as everybody else seems to be right now. But if I'm a Washington State defensive coordinator, I know Braelon, Allen, and Chez can beat me. So I'm going to stack the box, and I'm going to see what this new offense in Madison can do throwing the ball. That's what I would do. I think that's what they're going to do a lot. I agree with you there. Let's see. Playmaker had a good comment. He talked about, I feel like this team is the way to go, but I feel confident that will improve. I can't say I felt like that last year. He had a good comp. He talked about the Illinois State game last year where he felt like it was so difficult to get 38 points in that game. And it felt like this team this year against Buffalo got 38 and underachieved. I do think there is a lot of growth for this team. I talked about it on the first comment. I think the team you see now is going to be a lot different than the team you see in week 5 and week 6. I think the improvement is going to come throughout the season, right? And to his point, last year it didn't feel like that was the case. So I think that is a really good point. Last comment here. This one's from Mr. October. One big takeaway from the game, and this is something I was worried about, was penalties with the new scheme. Would there be false starts, illegal shifts? There was only 3 penalties. That is so much better than in years past, as Mr. October says. I think it's a really good point. The team was pretty disciplined, right? And one of the Turner with the late hit, or the targeting hit, which is a little questionable, I thought. But for the most part, that was a really clean game for a team breaking in so many new pieces and new schemes and new coaches. That's a really strong indictment of the type of coaching on this staff, right? It would be very easy for this team to have looked really undisciplined and have a lot of silly mistakes, and they didn't. They really didn't. So I think that's a really good sign as well, Mr. October. I agree with you there. All right, that's just our comment show today on Wisconsin. A bunch more to talk about. I have a great guest coming up tonight that's going to release tomorrow. You're going to want to stay tuned for that. And then we'll do another Washington State look ahead. Obviously, a live show coming up this week as well on Wisconsin, and we'll talk later.